Batter up.
Rob and Chris, they're on the air. Yankees, Mets, they're everywhere. From the Bronx to Queens, the diamond gleams. MLB talk, the ultimate team. MLB is the place to be. Rob and Chris with the pitch you'll see. Swinging stats and stories fly. Baseball talk that's amplified.
And welcome to a new episode of NY MLB Talk with your host Rob and Chris as we cover the Yankees, Mets, and all Major League Baseball. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that sub button. We'd really appreciate it. And if you want to follow us on TikTok or on Twitter, it's at NY MLB Talk. Rob at R. Maraska, myself at CP7NY. Rob, we got two special guests tonight. Why don't you bring them on?
No, I've been waiting for the show for a while, Chris, as you know, and I'm so happy. We have Chief Gene Locklear and Dr. Jay Thomas. Jay wrote the book, Chief's book, Chief, The 3 Lives of Gene Locklear, which I read and I loved it. And I'm telling you guys out there, it's not only a baseball book, it's a life story. You have to get it. I picked the book up. I couldn't put it down. And just the way Jay wrote this book in the voices of everyone who knows Chief and in Chief's voice, it was amazing. Before I get to Chief, Jay, just real quick, how did this become? How did this happen? Because I loved, and I've told you on the phone, I've loved the format of the book.
Chief and I met probably 5 years ago when we started working on this. It was at the end of my teaching career, and I wanted to do something different in terms of my writing and subjects. And so I reached out to Chief, and we just hit it off right away for a lot of reasons. One is he grew up in North Carolina, and my family's from North Carolina. And he started telling me his life story, which was, fascinating in itself. He grew up in grew up in a log cabin, literally, as Chief will tell you, in a very poor community in southeastern North Carolina. And it started out as one of those, Chief was born in 1940, and we decided, let's do something different with it. So I called Chief one day and I said, Chief, I'm trying to work with your story and clean up your language, not like R-rated language or anything, but just, the idioms and the redundancies. And he said, no. He said, if you're going to tell my story, I want my people to know that I'm telling your story. So I went back to square one and read through all those transcripts and cleaned them up in such a way that it told his story. And it was kind of like a puzzle. I was moving stuff around all the time. And then part of the story is that I went with Chief to what's called Homecoming in Pembroke, his hometown. And I went on a tour of where he grew up, and we saw the ballparks where he played, and the school where he attended. And I went on a tour of like historic landmarks in Pembroke, and I thought, I can't tell the story. It has to be told in the voices of the people who. So that's where the interview started. I decided I was just going to do everything, literally, clean up the the idioms and some of those sorts of things. But you're right, Rob. It really is told. I have a piece in it, just kind of setting context from chapter to chapter. But it's Chief's story, his teammates, his family. Kelvin Sampson, who a lot of people know if you're a basketball fan, is a Lumbee Indian, and he contributed. So it really is the voice of the Lumbee people. And in fact, I think Chris, you kind of mentioned it. This is not a baseball book. It's a book. It's a book about a guy who played baseball, but has a fascinating story outside, life story outside of baseball.
Yeah, it was so good. I just couldn't put it down. And Chief, welcome. Glad to finally meet you. Glad you're on the show. The 3 lives. What 3 lives? How about 20 lives? Really, what an amazing story. In the 2nd grade, you knew that you wanted to be a Major League Baseball player and an artist. And guess what? It came true. How did you know in the 2nd grade that's what you wanted to do?
I don't know. If I look at it now, wouldn't have known or thought of it the way it happened back then. But if I look at it now, it has to be a God thing. It has to be a spiritual thing. And if anything in the book, I hope that I say that in the book. You know, you can want to be, but it's another thing to be able to accomplish what you want to in life, especially when you start out very young and you don't know all the bumps and everything else you're going to hit, and the problems you're going to have, and you have to get through that to still accomplish whatever it is your dream is. And I can say that I did that, and I've done that, and I'm still looking to accomplish some other things in my life.
Well, I mean, so far so good. You've really accomplished a lot. And you literally grew up in a log cabin, right?
Yeah, I grew up in a 4-room log house. I think I would say 2 of my bedrooms now is as big as the house that I grew up in, log cabin with a fireplace. My mom cooked with a wood stove. And guess where the refrigerator was? The refrigerator was on the outside on the back porch. They ran the electric line under the window and plugged it in the house. And so if you wanted something, you had to go out of the refrigerator. You had to go outside to get it.
That's amazing. Chris, do you have anything you want to say? Because I know I start to talk a lot.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Just growing up, Chief, how'd you get into baseball?
Well, at that particular period of time, the young people, you either played baseball. There wasn't much basketball to be played. There was no football. Or you went fishing and hunting. And that was basically the only sports that the young people or the young teenagers coming up did. There was nothing else to do except fish and hunt or play baseball.
Okay.
Yeah, and I find it amazing that you were not scouted, right? You weren't scouted.
No, I wasn't scouted. I was playing in Houston one day, and I'm coming in during batting practice, and this guy said, "Come here," and he's a scout, and he said, "Where are you from?" I told him. He said, "You can't play baseball. Nothing good comes out of that location. There's no way you came up from there. There's no ball players that could ever come out of there." So that was the attitude, or that was the thinking of a lot of people from 50s, 60s, and on back, and even in the 70s, because I'm talking that, I was in the majors in the 70s, and still there was people that thought that way. That's kind of thinking.
Yeah, that's crazy. But you tried out, you had to try out with the Pittsburgh Pirates, right?
Yeah.
And they weren't signing anybody at the time, so they told you to see a Red Scout, or a Red Scout saw you play. What happened with that?
Well, what happened was there was about maybe 50 kids at the tryout, and so the guy that was doing the tryout came to me and he said, "If I was going to sign anybody, I'd sign you, but it's too late in the season. There's nowhere to send you." But he didn't say anything else. And then the next spring, he called the guy that did sign me, and who was a scout for Cincinnati Reds, and he said, I received your number. I want you to look at you. I'm going to be so-and-so place. Come in and certain time. And I did. And there was 3 of us, and he signed, out of the 3 that was trying out, he signed myself and another kid, and that's how it happened.
And Chris, get a load of this, okay? If you think about this, Chief didn't play that long, but he starts off Cincinnati Reds, big red machine, right?
Right.
Johnny Bench, Perez,
Yeah.
Pete Rose, and he played. He could have been on those big red machine teams that won those World Series. Okay, that's where he started, and then he finished with the great Yankee teams, and in between, all right, the San Diego Padres. But the funny thing is, Chief, tell Chris what Pete Rose said to you when the Reds traded you to the Padres.
So Pete and I were very close. In fact, we were close enough that in the wintertime, I was single, of course, and I would drive from North Carolina to Cincinnati on weekends. I would leave on a Friday and stay in Cincinnati, and I'd stay at his home with him. And I'd, go out and party a little bit that Friday night, Saturday, and then I'd come back to North Carolina on the Sunday. I did that a lot for about 2 or 3 years. And so I knew he was always in my corner. So when I found out I was going to be traded, I went over to him and I said, I can't believe this is happening. He said, well, look at it this way. You'll always be on the All-Star team. See, that's how he thought of me. He knew that I was good enough, even though I only played 2 games in Cincinnati in 3 months. He knew I should be playing somewhere. So in the big leagues anyway, someplace. So he said, just think of it this way. You're going someplace, you'll get to play, and you should be on the All-Star team every year. That's how he looked at it. And that's how he judged who the great players were. If you make the All-Star team, win batting titles, and MVP awards, then you're a superstar.
Yeah, that's a great story. And the book's full. Anybody who wants to buy the book is full of these stories, but it's not only about baseball, like we said. Chris, go ahead, take a question.
Yeah, right before we get to the question, if you're interested in the book, that QR code in the top left-hand corner, just take a picture of that. It takes you directly to the Amazon page with the book, and you can purchase it right there. He's also got a web page as well, GeneLocklear.com, and it's got all of his artwork that we're going to get into in a few minutes, but his whole story's on there as well. So, Chief, yeah, I mean, just looking at your, the baseball reference page, you went from Cincinnati, San Diego, then you end up with the Yankees in '76. Tell us about that. How'd you end up there?
Well, I ended up there because I was very miserable in San Diego. In '75, I hit 321 for the Padres. Nobody even came close to hitting 300 on the team besides me. And then in '76, season starts. Three months into the season, I haven't played a game. So I go in, McNamara's the manager, and I go, hey, Mac, what's going on? And he said, it came from upstairs. They told me not to play you. I said, how can you not play a guy that hit 321 last year for you? Well, that's the way it is. It came from upstairs. See, that's how losing organizations can be. They know they're not going to win. So if you rock the boat a little bit, they don't care whether they keep you. They don't care whether they don't keep you. They're going to, if they don't like you, then that's it, because they're losers. And at that particular time, San Diego was the worst team in the National League. So I actually told Mac, I said, Mac, I'm not going to play for you anymore. And I said, if you don't know what that means, you can send me the bat 20 more times and I'm not going to get a hit. And that's what I did. And I knew what was going to happen. I knew that if they didn't trade me, they'd send me to the minor leagues and all that. But to me, I had made up my mind. I'd rather play in AAA than to sit on the bench for the Padres. That was the bottom line. So instead of sending me to AAA, they traded me to the Yankees. And then the first thing the Yankees did, they sent me to AAA. But at least I was with a team that I knew was a baseball team, and they wanted to win. So anyway, I stayed there 3 or 4 months. They finally called me up. But, the '76, '77 team, that was the teams for the Yankees who was going into the World Series, that they had some good ball players. There was no way that I was just going to come in and, take Mickey Rivers' job, you might say, or any of those guys' job, because they were established and they were winning too.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, Cincinnati played the Yankees and won the World Series in '76 against the Yankees. So you were involved with the Cincinnati Reds, like I said before, the Big Red Machine, and the great Yankee teams with Reggie, Catfish, Thurman. I mean, it's just amazing. Yet you could hit. I know you could hit because I got a quick little story. I used to when I was a kid, my aunt and uncle and cousins lived in Hawaii on Oahu, and I used to spend summers in Hawaii. And Chief played for the Padres AAA team, the Hawaiian Islanders, and I actually saw Chief play for the Islanders a bunch of times when I was in Hawaii as a kid. So it's just amazing that now I'm talking to him on the show. It's just amazing. And when we were backstage, Chief said to me, "You remembered me?" I said, "How could anybody forget you?"
You want to hear a good Hawaii story?
Yes, definitely.
Anyway, I have this friend from back home that comes to Hawaii. He was an ex-Navy guy, and he wanted to go over to Pearl Harbor, and see all that. And so he was going to come to the game. And he said to me before him and I left to go to the ballpark, he said, "I want you to do me a favor." I said, "What's that?" He said, "I want you to hit me a home run tonight." Now, don't tell me. I mean, I can't tell you why I said this. I said, "That's all right. I'm going to hit you too." And so it went off like that, and that's the way it went. And then the game started. The first time up, I hit a ground ball. The next time up, I hit a home run. And then the next time up, I hit another home run. And when I'm coming around second base, there might have been 200-300 people in the stands. He's standing up and he's got his fist in the air and he goes, "He told me he was going to do it. He told me he was going to do it."
That's a great.
That's one of my favorite stories.
That is a great story. Go ahead, Chris.
I wanted to just go back. Like, what do you think was the reasoning why they didn't play you? Was it because you were Native American, or other reasons?
It wasn't that. I was a guy that didn't talk much. And I was a guy, I stayed by myself and I did my own thing. And you'd be surprised whether or not it's athletics or any other profession. If a lot of people don't really know you and they're having a conversation with you, they just make judgments. So I personally think, like, for instance, I wasn't Sparky Anderson's guy in Cincinnati.
Right.
That's the reason I was there for 3 months and I never played but 2 games. George Sugar, do you guys know that name, George Sugar? Oh, George Sugar was the reason that I signed to play professional baseball. So George was my man. So George, I said to him, "George, why won't Sparky let me play?" Now this is after I had won 2 batting titles in the minor leagues and MVP twice. And still Sparky wouldn't let me play. And so George goes, I talk to Sparky all the time, and I said, "Please play, Chief," and he won't play me. So what I'm trying to say is, when you get to the higher level, there's a lot of things that happen that don't make sense, and it doesn't mean the best guys or the right guys is the one you see out on the field all the time, because if you piss the wrong people off and you say or do the wrong things, they just set you on the bench and you die there, and nobody ever sees you. Your career is over. And I've seen that happen to more than just one guy.
Yeah,
it's different, because when a guy has a multi-million-dollar contract, he's going to play.
Oh yeah,
that's for sure. Jay, I wanted to ask you, writing this book and interviewing people in Chief's life, how was that for you to hear these stories firsthand, and then to put their words in the book? Like I said, if anybody picks up this book, and you should pick it up, you will see how it's written in everyone's words. So tell me, how was that speaking to Chiefs people?
That's a great question, and I think it was one of the most enjoyable parts about the book, because everybody that I talked to, everybody who played with Chief picked up the phone right away. and had story after story after story after story. And Rob, you know, I mean, you've read the book. There are so many great stories in there that we had to leave probably half of them out. But you heard stories about Chief in a very human way, you know. I'll share this one real briefly. And Chief, I'm going to embarrass you here. When they were playing in Three Rivers in the Eastern League, Chief said, "Watch me." They were at a restaurant, and Chief said, "Watch me get a date with this girl." And he looked at the name tag and it said Grappa. And Chief said, "Hey, what are you doing later tonight, Grappa?" And turns out that it was an advertisement for red wine. and so I who told me that story? I think that was Yanni Grubb that told me. I can't remember who told me that story. And he was just rolling on the floor when he told that story. So just listening to these guys tell me stories about Chief that I could, you know, and the book is just full of them, about the time they were kind of yanking his chain on a home run and told him it was a foul ball, and, you know, just things like that. But they were great behind the scenes story that really tells you a lot about Chief.
So you have to remember, now where I came from, and this is true, we had our own language. So there was one night, I was always a guy, I always believed mentally is the center, definitely one of the centerpieces of being able to play or contribute physically. So I was called up to hit my first year. I was called up to hit, and I'm trying to get up there, but I'm trying to think the whole time. And I have the donut, you know, the donut you put on the bat. Well, I put it on there, but I'm trying to get it off on the big end. Not a little end. I'm trying to get it off on the big end. So the manager comes over and let me help you with this, Chief. So he takes the bat, turns it upside down, and of course the donut goes off. And I go, "Thank you very much." I said, "I just didn't know how I was going to get that donut off that bat."
Chris, you know, I could talk baseball, you know, forever, but you want to bring up some of Chief's artwork so we could talk, you know, a little about that.
Well, I think before we bring up the art, I think we have a story that they wanted us to put up, right?
Yeah, and I have another one too. All right, go ahead.
The Yogi Berra taxi story. So give us that quickly, or
okay. Yeah. The Yogi story. We land in New York. We come in from Toronto, and I'm going down the elevator, and Yoki and I and a lot of the other guys lived outside of New York. We lived right across the George Washington Bridge, because you could just get on the bridge, and the stadium was only like 20 minutes or 30 minutes from where the bridge was. So I'm going down the elevator to get a taxi, and so Yoki goes, "Hey, Chief, come on, let's get a taxi together." So we get in the taxi, we go along, and as soon as we get across the bridge, the taxi breaks down. And so the guy's on the phone, and he's trying to get someone to come out or whatever. And Yoki goes, "I got to go take a you-know-what." And so he gets out, and I go, "Yeah, I got to go over here and check out these bushes too." So we go over there, and we're doing our thing, right? And so the cops come up, and they're from New York. And boy, they start riding that taxi driver, "Get that cab out of here. You're not supposed, you New Yorker, you're still in airport land." And about that time, they see me over there, and I'm turning around. They go, "Hey, you over there, you can't be doing that in Jersey. We're going to put you in jail." So I'm walking over there. I'm sort of smiling because I knew, you know, nothing was going to happen. And I'm walking towards the taxi, and about that time, Yoki turns around. And they're going, "Yoki, it's Yogi Berra. Come here, Yoki, sign this for me. Sign that for me." So they go, "Go ahead, guys. Where are you guys heading?" We say, "In Jersey." "Okay, get in the cab. We'll take you where you live." So we get in the cab, and here we go. And they take Yoki home and take me to the hotel where I live.
That's a great story.
They were going to arrest me, but once they saw Yoki, it was all over.
That's it, Chris. Before we get to the art stuff, I just have to talk to Chief about one thing. Okay, Vern Rapp. What was Vern Rapp's problem? Because you're not the only player who had a problem with Vern Rapp. We've spoke about him on other shows with John D'Acquisto. So what was with Vern Rapp?
Well, him and John was real close. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, I know.
John loved him like a father.
Yeah, he took him out with pitching that no-hitter.
So anyway, now I'm leading the league in the hitting, and Indianapolis. He's the manager, and he calls me in one day. He goes, you're nothing but a troublemaker, and I don't know what I'm going to do with you. I said, well, whatever. I didn't say anything because I knew where he was coming from. He wanted me to say or do something that would make him go back to Sparky or anybody and say, this is a bad kid. He told me, one of the first things he ever told me was, first time I saw you, I didn't like you. And I had never spoke to him before. And that was in spring training. And I'm going, oh boy, here we go. So one of the things, there was a TP in Indianapolis because they were called the Indianapolis Indians. So he fined me one day, made out I wasn't hustling. So he fined me $50. So the next day I come in and one of the guys upstairs goes, you need to come up. You got to pay us $50. Raps fined you $50 for not hustling. So I go in and they go, what about the $50? I said, hey guys, what about this? You had that TP in the center field and it needs a paint job. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come out tomorrow. You guys buy the paint, and I'll paint that TP like it should be painted, like an Indian TP. They go, you got a deal. So when he found that out, boy, he was really pissed in because when he got there the next day, that TP was painted, and then he found out that I hadn't paid that fine, and they told him that I made a deal with them, and it was the TP. And he didn't like that. But then in the end of the season, he finally got me. So we had like 2 or 3 days to go. I'm leading the league. I'm a rookie, probably going to be rookie of the year in AAA there. And so he calls me in his office. And before I could come through the door, he said, you can stop right there. He said, I just finished talking to Sparky. I said, yeah. He said, Sparky called and wanted to know if he should call you up. See, the last 30 days of the major league season, if you're in the minor leagues, they can call you up. Yep. So I was on the big league roster, so Sparky was thinking about calling me up. So he said, I just want you to know, I told him he should never call you anywhere and never think about you playing on the Cincinnati Reds. All you are is a troublemaker. I said, okay. I turned around and left. And that was just one of the stories that I had a conflict with him. He never ever tried to have a conversation with me to find out who I were and how I thought and to try to be able to communicate on a certain level.
Rob, can I jump in here?
Yeah, of course.
So this is just something Chief and I have talked about because what you just raised is a big part of the book. One of the things before the book, I wrote an article about baseball players who were painters, which is how Chief and I became such close friends. And when he talked about being kind of quiet and a loner, and that's a piece of it. But I don't think the baseball establishment likes free thinkers. I mean, think about Jim Bouton and Jim Brosnan, and Chief, who were painters, and it's in the book, Chris. Stories about Kenny Holtzman. And it's not that they're smart or anything. It's just that they're free thinkers, independent, and baseball just doesn't like that. So I think what Vern Rapp saw was like old school Vern Rapp didn't like a painter on his team.
Yeah, he told me one day, he said, what are you going to do, be an artist or a baseball player? I said, both. He said, you need to make up your mind what you're going to do. You're not going to be able to do both. Well, you know how to end that story ended.
That's right. So, Chris, you want to put up some of Chief's artwork now, and we could talk for a couple of minutes about that. Chief, you had, what did you have? 2 paintings in the White House?
Yeah, I still have one, and I did have 2 at one time.
That's just amazing. How did that feel to you, having your paintings in the White House?
Well, how it makes me feel is that, again, if you want to go back to spirituality or there is a God, if you're willing to work hard enough, if you're dedicated, and you do believe in the right things in life, that anything's possible. I know if you guys has ever interviewed certain movie stars who came from same situations I came from, and now they're big time movie stars. It's amazing how things do happen. You can never lose hope, and you can never stop working, and you should never stop having dreams of becoming who you think you could be.
Yeah, it's amazing. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, the artwork is just amazing. It's amazing that before we get to the artwork, you played in '77 with the Yankees. You played one game, went 3 for 5, drove in a couple of runs, and then nothing. 27 years old, you're in your prime. What happened then? Really quick, before we get into the art, we can finish up. We can close out baseball here. But what happened after the '77 season with you?
Well, I hate to bore you guys with some sort of negative stories, but in that year, I spent a lot of time in AAA. I went to spring training with the Yankees, and guess what? I went to bat one time. So the writing was on the wall that I wasn't going to make the team. I wasn't going to go north. So I went on to AAA, and during the AAA season, now this is a true story, and on the AAA season, the general manager of the AAA team called me in, and he goes, I have 3 teams that's calling me. I have the Dodgers, I have Minnesota, and I think it was the White Sox. And all 3 of these teams has tried to get the Yankees to let you go so they could sign you, but the Yankees won't let you go. And I said, yeah, but I'm stuck here in AAA. And he said, yeah. So that's the way it was. Even when I went to the Yankees and had a chance of getting right back into the big leagues, they decided, no, they're going to keep me in AAA. And who knows if I was going to ever get to the big leagues again. So,
yeah. Sorry, Chief.
So that's the way, guys. That's the way it happens to some guys. Back then, it happened to a lot of guys that ended up in a situation like myself, where it didn't matter what your stats were. It mattered whether or not somebody liked you. It mattered whether or not if you were a favorite of someone more so than another player. So that's the situation I ended up in, and all 3 years with the 3 different teams I played with.
Yeah, that's a shame. It really is. I hate hearing that. But before we get to the art, I had a question. What was your relationship with Billy Martin?
I like Billy. Billy didn't bother me. Billy, now I tell you what, if Billy don't like you, you can have problems. Well, you know that Billy didn't like Reggie, so you know what happened with him and Reggie. But if Billy didn't like you, but Billy liked me. We never did talk that much. We never did. I wasn't given a chance to play. I do remember at the end of the '77 season, the last game we had 2 double hitter, and he actually came to me and he said, you need to get some hits. It's between you and I forgot the left-hand pitcher that ended up being so good.
Guidry?
Who?
Guidry?
Yeah. He says between you and him, ever who makes the squad for us to go into playoffs. Well, as it happened, I didn't have 2 games and I didn't play well. And Gedrick, he ended up going with the big league team, and he played in the minor leagues all year long. And we know what Gedrick's story was for the rest of his baseball career. He ended up being a great pitcher. And then I ended up not playing anymore in the major leagues.
The Yankees you did get a World Series ring, right, Chief?
Yes.
And they voted you a share of the World Series money too?
Yes. Yeah, the players, the players is the one on the Yankees anyway. The players is the one who decides who gets money and how much they get.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you got a ring and at least they voted you some money. Chris, before we get to the art stuff, did you want to ask Chief anything else about certain Yankees like Reggie, how he got along with him or anything like that?
Sure. I mean, any other stories outside of, like maybe with Reggie or with Thurman Munson, any of those guys? Any good stories you could tell us? A quick one before we get into all this art?
Well, I'll say the last conversation that I had with Thurman was that I would sit in my locker and I'd do sketches of the guys. And he came over one day and he saw some. And he said, I'm thinking about getting someone to do a painting for me. So later on, I went over to his locker and I did a pencil sketch of him. He said, yeah, I like that. He said, when the season's over, he said, we'll get together. And it's either was you or Leroy Neiman that I want you to do a painting for me. I said, well, just let me know. That's the last conversation I had with him before, his what happened to him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and I have another thing I have to ask you before we get to the artwork. Frank Sinatra story, Chief.
Which part of the Frank Sinatra story?
All right, the book cover.
So, okay. So anyway, I came out of my locker one day when I was in New York, and this guy bent over the top of the dugout and he goes, here, take my card. He said, I want you to do a book cover. And he said, when the season's over, call me. I said, okay. So I did. When the season was over, I called him. And he said, you driving or what? I said, yeah. He said, come so-and-so where he lived and da-da-da. He said, you stay with me overnight and I'll talk to you about this book I'm doing for Frank Sinatra. I said, okay. So he must have seen my artwork, Wide World of Sports or somewhere, because Joe Garagiola did a thing on me in 76. So anyway, end of the season, I get in my car and I go to where he lived. And so he showed me what he wanted and he said, just use your imagination, but I want you to do something for the cover. I said, okay. So I came back. The season was over. I did this piece for him, sent it to him. Yeah, I love it. And put it and they used it. They used it on the cover of the book. And I got some credits inside for it. I never did actually talk to Frank, but I talked to this guy who was representing him. And then later on that winter, he called me and he goes, I have a cousin and my wife and someone else. I'd like for you to do 3 small paintings for me. I said, okay, that sounds good. So I did them, sent them to him. He received the paintings, said he liked them. And so about a month or 2 months went by. I never received any money. So I called him. I said, hey, what about my paintings? When are you going to send me a check? There was a little silence on the other end of the phone, and he goes, you want to be my friend. You just don't want to be my enemy. Do you understand? I go, yes, sir, I understand. Very much so, I understand. Now, that's not the end of the story. So after I'm out of baseball, about 3 or 4 years, my wife and I and another couple, we go to Vegas, and I remembered this one guy that had sent me some stuff to sign, cards and stuff. And he said, if you're ever at Las Vegas, he said, call me. So I remembered that, and I checked on him, and his secretary said, "Yeah." He said, come on over and come in." So I go in his office, and I'm sitting there, and he goes, "Do you see anything in this room that you recognize?" And I looked around, I looked up to my left, and I said, "Yeah, that's a painting of mine." He said, "Yeah, my uncle gave me that." And he said, "That's a treasure. I would take anything for it." And my mind's just going around and around, and I'm saying, that's one of them 3 paintings I never got paid for, and his uncle is the one that got my paintings. But I said, "You better be cool, because you know where you're at. You don't want to get on the wrong side of this guy either." So I never said another word about that painting. And that's how that one ended.
That's another great story in the book, and everybody out there watching, there's so many stories like that in the book. So you definitely have to pick that book up. Chris, you want to put the Chief's artwork up again?
Art up, the QR code up in that left-hand corner takes you directly to the book on Amazon. So you can order it right there. And actually, I checked today. It was actually on sale. There must have been a sale on it, so you guys could check that out. But here's the right from the Gene Locklear webpage. You could also check that out. Got a really cool webpage with all of his artwork presented there. This is pencil. What's the difference? We know what the difference between pencil and oil on canvas and acrylic on canvas. How do you get into these different modes of art? Or method?
Well, you have to think about everybody don't like painting. Some people like pencil sketches. Some people like crayon painting. Some people like charcoal. So if you're trying to survive on your artwork, sometimes you need to have a variety of things for different people that collect different subjects, different mediums. And so what I've always done in the past is pencil, acrylic, and oil, and try to also come up with my own technique. That's a very key, big thing too. Like with the sports things, I like Leroy Neiman, but I didn't want to be known as a copier of Leroy Neiman. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So as an individual artist, you're always trying to come up with your own technique and your own medium and subject matter that clarifies you as a certain artist.
Hey, Rob. Hey, guys, can I jump in here?
Yeah, just jump in, Jay. Yes.
So,
definitely.
Rob, you mentioned the White House paintings, and Chief also had 6 permanent paintings in the Pentagon. But I actually want to point out he had 7 paintings, and he can tell you about this. Chief did a portrait of the first Native American woman to be killed. I think it was the first Gulf War, and that's in the Pentagon permanently. And I'll probably mispronounce her name, Lori Piestewa, I think her name was.
Yes.
And she was the first Native American female killed in the first Gulf War, and Chief did that one for the Pentagon as well.
Wow. That's amazing.
The first 4 paintings I did for Pennzoil. And what we did, they picked 4 professional baseball players that had served in the armed forces. And I did a painting of each one. And then we made copies. And then one guy went to the Marines, another guy Air Force, and another guy visited the Army. Another guy visited the Navy bases. And what they would do is they go to these bases and meet with the Navy guys, and they'd sign these posters and give them to them. And that was a Pennzoil project that I did. And then the originals ended up in the Pentagon.
Yeah, all your stuff is just amazing, Chris. What do you think, Chris? It's
unbelievable. I mean, I was looking at it earlier today. I'm looking at it now, and it's just amazing. That's all.
I'll say this. Last week I was in Phoenix visiting Chief and saw some other family out there. And we had a little open house at Chief's place. His wife Susan put on a really lovely book signing and art show. You need to see these in person. I mean, these when you see these, they're almost like 3-dimension when you see them in person. The colors are spectacular. You don't get a sense of the size. Chief has one over his couch that's probably the size of the biggest TV screen you can imagine. But these are ones you really have to see, especially the oils. You really have to see these in person.
Yeah, I would love to see those in person. Definitely, it's just such amazing work. And guys, check out Chief's website. Definitely. I mean, look at these. Look at this artwork. It's just amazing. What an amazing life. And like I said, I recommend his book. I loved it. And I just hope that people are out there. I know Anthony Savino definitely is going to read this book because I know he is. He's going to tell me later that he's getting a Chiefs book. Anthony, thanks for commenting. By the way, all right. I want to get back to a quick baseball question that I forgot to ask. Chief, did you ever have any conversations with the boss, George Steinbrenner?
No, but let me tell you what I did. He didn't receive me too well. After I finished playing, when Thurman died, it came to my mind, maybe I could do something in the name of all the players that played with him. So what I did is I did a painting of him catching. I paid for my own trip, and I went to New York. I went over to Yankee Stadium, and I took the painting with me. And I went into the reception office, and I told them what I wanted. I wanted to give this painting that I had to George Steinbrenner in the name of all the players. So the guy left and came back, and he goes, "I'm sorry, but he won't meet with you." So that was mine and George's meeting or talking or whatever the last time that I ever tried to do anything with the Yankees or for the Yankees or whatever. But I did understand later that he did receive the painting, and it was hanging on his wall because one of the guys that worked for him later on, I was in a golf tournament, and he told me, he said, "Hey, I have something of yours." I go, "What's that?" He said, "I was in George's office one day, and he said, see all those paintings up there?" He said, "Pick one." And he said, "You can have it." So he picked the painting that I had painted, and he said, "I have it hanging in my house." I said, "So George gave you my painting?" He said, he said, he asked me to pick any one that I wanted. He said, "I picked the one that you had given." So that's the George Steinbrenner story.
That's great. And are there any, Jay, are there any book signings coming up anywhere?
Yes, no, but I will share this with you. Chief and I, we got together with last week with a book signing, and this is, not shameless self-promotion, but I wanted to share it with people. So we have books signed by both Gene and me, but Chief and I have been, well, I say we, Chief's been doing all the heavy lifting, but he also has these, which have original watercolor pen and ink inside. And so these are kind of a special edition. So Rob, I'll work with you on this, setting up some kind of way to get them out. But the ones with Gene's artwork are limited to 200. 200 for right now. But the others are $25 plus like $5 shipping. But Gene and I have a bunch of those signed.
Great. And that one of our viewers is going to order the book tonight. Thank you, Liz. Appreciate it. And yeah, definitely is awesome. I can't. What did I? Go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
I'll work with you on that, Rob, because you probably
okay.
You know your viewers, and we'll figure something out. But yeah, we have the signed ones, and then we also have the ones that are one of 200 that Chief is doing for, we have like a dozen or so left, but he's doing 200.
That's great. And what did I tell you guys? Like the hour is flying by. We got to get a couple of questions in, Chris. So go ahead, take over this part of the interview, Chris.
Well, before we get to our final question, I just want to ask a quick one about art, any kind of art, any interesting, commissioned art that you had to do. Any interesting story about a specific one you did in the past?
I did a whole restaurant for Pete Rose around 73, 74. I'm in Cincinnati with him, and he had just made a deal to put in a pancake house in his name, Pete Rose Pancake House, close by where he lived. And his wife came up with the idea, Carolyn. Carolyn said, "Hey, why don't we let Chief paint some paintings to go in there?" And we got together on a price between you and I, guys. I think I did those paintings for something like $100 or something like that a piece. And I did, I did probably 20 pieces. So how much are they worth today?
Yeah.
So anyway, I did a whole restaurant for him, and then eventually the restaurant was sold. And I think a private collector came in and he bought all the paintings. And where they're at right now, I don't know. But I did do that was a special deal for me, especially back then, to do a whole restaurant for Pete Rose.
Wow. That really is an amazing story. Like, you have no idea where a lot of your work are. It's just amazing. They could be anywhere. And okay, Liz, that's great. Liz is definitely interested in a special edition, so I will get in touch with her, and Jay will work that out. Okay, before Chris asks you that question, Chief, I wanted to ask you about the Big Red Machine. Okay, we know about Pete Rose, but what about the other guys? Johnny Bench. How did you get along with Johnny Bench?
Well, he wrote a piece for me that's on the back of the book. Did you read it? Yeah.
Yes.
Him and Dave Winfield. So John and I always got along good. In fact, when I called him and I told him I wanted him to write a small piece for me, whatever, and he said, "I know exactly what I'm going to do." I said, "What's that?" He said, "I'm going to tell everybody how you used to sit in the locker and you'd put a big sheet over your head and you just sat there and go, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 yeah." We had a big laugh over that. So that's the kind of relationship, like myself and John, and then Winfield goes, "I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell everybody how bad of an outfielder you were when that one day the ball hit you in the head." I said, "You don't know." "Oh, yeah, but nobody else will know that except me and you."
That's
that's what you miss when you played in sports. You played a long time, and especially if you played well, and you was on good teams. And again, I was on the great Yankees. I was on the great Cincinnati Reds. Yeah. The whole atmosphere was completely different from the San Diego Padres. I mean, when you get to for instance, with the Padres, I won a AAA batting title. They shipped me my award, and this is how they gave it to me. I'm in my locker, and a guy comes in. He goes, "Hey, Locklear, yeah, I have a box upstairs. You can come up and get it if you want it." I go, "Where it's from?" "It's from Hill and Bradley." I go, "Oh, man, that's my batting title award." And as he's walking away, I said, "Hey, I've only been here a month. This is the ugliest and the sorriest team in Major League Baseball, and I only been here 1 month." And that's the kind of organization it was. And that's what you call losers. But then the great winning teams, there's a camaraderie. Way the guys think together. They play together. And after the game, they go out together and have dinner and just sit around and tell stories. But at Padres, that didn't happen. It was completely what they represented themselves, which was a losing organization.
Okay, Chris, you want to ask Jay and then Chief the final question that you ask everybody?
Yeah. We asked this one question at the end. Guys, if you were named MLB commissioner, what changes would you make to the game?
Jay.
It would change singular.
Anything changes.
I think some of those rules they've implemented in the past few years. I mean, I can live with the pitch clock. I can live with some of those things, but the come out of like beer league softball, like the ghost runner.
Yeah.
I mean, those have no place in Major League Baseball. When I first saw that, I thought, what is this, the Atlantic League? Independent baseball. Sure enough, and a year or two later, they put it in place. And so, yeah, I think, to speed up the game is not a bad idea, although I like long games. But, things like that, try to make the game almost secondary, put a ghost runner on second base. And, it just drives me nuts.
Yeah, that's the most popular answer to that question, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The ghost runner, nobody likes that.
Nah.
Oh, I wish I came up with a better answer then, because
that's a good answer. And how about you? How about you, Chief? If you could change anything in baseball, what would you change?
Okay, let me ask you something. Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame, right?
Right.
Let me ask you something, and be honest. Is baseball players betting on their same games? Is baseball players betting on other games? Is baseball players betting on other teams? And Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame? I don't understand it, guys. I mean, humans are humans.
Right.
You're going to tell me that the ball players today, especially if the ones that hasn't got caught, is not betting on their own teams and betting in the other league against other teams and whatever? But yet they made a big deal about Pete Rose, and he said he didn't bet on baseball. Now, I have to believe him, but I don't believe the guys today with the kind of – what about the basketball players that already got caught?
Oh, yeah. More to come, I would assume.
Yeah. And the baseball players.
I don't think any baseball players has been really da-da-da because they don't want to find out. They don't want to find that out.
Yeah,
and
well,
they're making so much money, they don't even need the money. Lord, they make, 10 million, 20, 30, 50 million dollars. They don't need the money. It's that high that they get off of it, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, I never betted on a game.
Yeah.
Well, plus, it's hypocritical because baseball now, the post game is sponsored by DraftKings. The pregame is sponsored by DraftKings. The seventh inning stretch is sponsored by DraftKings. So it's very hypocritical. They love the money coming in, but it's just hypocritical. And we've had many discussions about Pete Rose and the Hall of Fame. And, now that he passed away, he won't even, what good is it for him? It's, for his family, yes. I changed my mind. I think that Pete should be in the Hall of Fame. And
I guarantee you guys, when he died, that was the worst thing that he could remember ever happened to him.
Oh, yeah.
He said he didn't do it. Is to be accused of doing that. And the whole key is he's not there with his friends. He's not there with the guys that he played with and played against. Whether or not you're 100 years old or where you played and who you played with or what, that's the best thing that ever happened in baseball when you played baseball is the competitiveness of the people you played against and the guys that you played for. That's what you miss the most when you're out of the game.
Yeah, I could imagine. Well, Chris, the hour is flown by. Do you have anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Just a quick thank you guys for coming on, sharing these great stories, because whether you get the book or not, these are the most amazing stories we're going to hear But just thank you. We really appreciate you guys coming on for this hour. Hopefully you guys can come on again, because
Yes.
I'm sure there's more stories. And remember that QR code in the top left-hand corner takes you directly to the book. Or if you want to order one that is signed and has the original art in it, just email Rob. The email is right there at NYMLB Talk, right, at Gmail, right? Is that?
Yeah, at Gmail, yes.
And
And
MLB Talk at Gmail.
I didn't mean to complicate your life, Rob. That's probably the easiest way for us to do it.
yeah, and that's okay. That's fine. I want to thank you, Jay. Always a pleasure talking to you. I spoke to you on the phone a couple times. And Chief, thank you. This was great. We want you to come back, no doubt about it, because I didn't get to, 1/4 of the things I want to talk to you about.
Hey, set it up, guys, where I can do a show in New York.
Definitely. Okay. Anyway, I want to real quick. WBC USA leads 5-0 over Canada. That's not a shock. And Monday, 3 p.m. You have me and Chris. We do not have a guest, so you're gonna have to hear us talk for about an hour about what's going on. Definitely, we want Chief back. And next Friday night, I think we're gonna have a special guest, Chris. I just got text a little while ago. I'll talk to you about it, and I'll announce it on Monday. Thank you, Dr. Jay Thomas, and thank you, Chief Gene Locklear. Thanks, everybody. There was a good crowd out there. We appreciate it. We'll see you Monday, 3 p.m.